This is the Pennyworth podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about Pennyworth Season 3, Episode 5, Rhyme and Reason.
Dad said you were acting weird, and he was right.
Weird? Dad said I was acting weird?
Something like that. You know I don't listen very closely to him.
Son of a bitch.
Why? Did he do something wrong? What? Did he not give you enough hugs? You've always been so sensitive when it comes to Dad.
Okay, drop it, Pat.
Well, at least he made the effort flying over here to see you. He barely acknowledges that I'm alive.
You want to know what happened? What he did? I'll tell you.
Thomas.
He gave me an experimental mind control drug that he developed with the CIA so that I would kill Martha in order to save his skin.
Whoa! Okay, that's not cool.
So please, don't mention him again.
You don't have to be so melodramatic.
He tried to make me kill my own wife.
But you didn't. Did you? She's sitting right there. All's well that ends well, right? Guess she has a point.
Welcome back, fellow governors, to our Pennyworth podcast here. We're talking about Pennyworth Season 3, Episode 5, Rhyme and Reason. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow governors, fellow Gothamites. I am one of your other hosts, John. I love rum and raisin.
I absolutely knew you were going to call it rum and raisin once again. It does sound like it, doesn't it?
It does a bit.
But there is no
It's
rhyme.
a well-known saying, rhyme and reason.
It is.
Which is where rum and raisin came from.
Exactly. No rhyme or reason to that particular joke again.
I actually detest rum and raisin.
I thought you did.
Worst ice cream ever.
It's pretty terrible, yes. But welcome back to our fellow governors. We are halfway through season 3 of Pennyworth because they released those first 3 episodes in one day. So really interestingly, we're at this kind of point where we're possibly making a visit to Gotham. Which is quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interesting, to be honest.
Back to where it all started for us on TV Podcast Industries and Gotham TV Podcast.
Definitely. Seeing Thomas Wayne there, getting on his private jet with the Wayne symbol there. So,
absolutely.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it was, because when you think back to the New York Comic Con interviews with Bruno Heller, where they talked about this new tagline that's on Pennyworth for this season, partly that's to do with it makes it easier to find in the HBO app. When when people type in Batman, you'll be able to see Pennyworth, the tale of Batman's butler, I think is the subtitle. But it's also that they found that there were a lot of people that didn't know that Pennyworth had any connection at all to the Batverse because they felt they were hiding too many Easter eggs in the show. So in here, having the Wayne Enterprises symbol and making a trip to Gotham is a bit more connection.
It's a little bit sort of on the nose, yes. I guess.
Yeah.
But thank you, fellow governors, as always, for subscribing. I hope you have subscribed. If you haven't, you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com where you can subscribe on any straight-laced or groovy podcast catcher of your choice to the Pennyworth podcast or TV Podcast Industries more generally.
Absolutely.
As well, you are very welcome to send in your thoughts about Pennyworth Season 3, all episodes, to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, where we will discuss them in our feedback section, also known as our Royal Mail. Just to tie it into the wet, windy London.
Exactly. Yes, we are recording these episodes a little bit in advance of the release on HBO Max. So we will talk about your thoughts about this episode on a future episode whenever you get your thoughts into us. But we do have some feedback in for last week's episode when we get to that section later on.
Excellent stuff. Let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion. Derek, what are some of the production details of Rum and Raisin?
Well, this episode is actually called Rhyme and Reason, and it is written by Robert Hull, who wrote episode 3 of Pennyworth, the last one that we talked about, and he also wrote 7 episodes of Gotham, including one of our favourites, Heavy Dirty Soul, in season 5. So some strong connections there to Bruno Heller and Danny Cannon, the creators of Gotham.
Excellent stuff.
And the episode was directed by Jill Robertson. This is the first of her 2 episodes of Pennyworth, and she directs the next episode as well, episode 6.
Good stuff. So we have a returnee from the Hellaverse, I guess, in Robert Hull, and we have a newbie in Jill Robertson coming in with the direction. Excellent stuff.
Exactly. And again, doing those bulk back-to-back episodes that they tend to do on these wonderful streaming shows. But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Pennyworth Season 3, Episode 5, Rhyme and Reason?
Sure. 1 month after Martha awakes from Thomas's attack, there is still distrust between them. But their arguments will have to wait as Patricia Wayne returns. The art-loving socialite is in London for the new exhibition of Francis Fuchs. After discussing his understandably tense relationship with their father Patrick, Thomas Wayne returns to Gotham to confront him. Meanwhile, Daveboy is also dragged along to the exhibition with his girlfriend Sally. As he is unimpressed by the supposed art on display, Sally convinces Daveboy to try out Francis Fuchs' new designer drug. The drug, which has been created from the mind-altering Project Lullaby drug by Dr Glubb, sets him off so much Daveboy can't even focus on Alfie Pennyworth's new job, which is that Prime Minister Aziz has tasked Alfie with protecting an independence advocate, Miss Kin, who is being targeted by the president of her home country, Kalpur. As Alfie gets closer to Miss Kin, he realizes that he was the one who kidnapped her father when he was a British soldier 10 years ago. Elsewhere, Bet Sykes, with baby Julia in tow, reconnects with former Raven leader Dr. Francis Gaunt. After some tenacious persuasion, Bet gets the location of her real target, John Salt. But when she catches up with him, the evil mastermind has transformed himself into something unrecognizable.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
But slightly,
dare I say it's more teeth than person.
True, but slightly recognizable if you remember Mr. Pennyworth and how he finished off after he came back from the dead.
Sorry, more robot and teeth than person. Yes. Unfortunately, it was the, I guess, unintentional, comical sort of happening from large acting dentures that need to be put in.
Yes.
So well done for him to sort of maintaining that to a minimum, but it felt like the robot had a lisp.
You noticed very quickly that John Salt sounded quite different than he did last time we heard him.
Just a bit.
Good stuff. Well, we're going to talk about our top moments from the episode.
We certainly are.
Let's start off with Alfie and the insurrectionist, Miss Kin.
Yeah, like, it's interesting, really. I mean, just generally on this episode, I just didn't know kind of where it was going with this new introduction of Miss Kin. I mean, we'd heard about the Commonwealth Summit happening, but then for it to be around this independence of Kalpur, Miss Kin's father having passed away, the president in league with her head of security, ultimately trying to assassinate her. Alfie seemingly making his way around important international figures through their bed sheets.
That's our Alfie.
It was kind of, I just didn't quite know where this was coming from. And I guess it's more to do with the overarching story arc. And I mean, there are 10 episodes here. So we've still got a way to go. But I mean, we are coming up, it is effectively the halfway point.
Yeah.
And I just feel that a lot of this stuff is just kind of like, it's there, it fills the episode. And whether it really fully is engaged with the storyline or whether it's just something to propel someone somewhere like Gotham, I'm just not too sure. And so it just felt kind of a bit tacked on, really. But I like the actual story, just purely linking it back to Alfie's time as a soldier, hit that sudden realization of his involvement, wondering what the Prime Minister Aziz is kind of up to here. Is he a friend or foe in this matter? It's not entirely clear. But you're kind of wondering whether to really sink your teeth into these additional storylines. Because in a sense, they almost don't persist, and you're wondering whether to invest in Miss Kin, who I really liked as the character.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her interaction with Alfie. Certainly, Alfie is, as I say, he's racking up, I guess, some wins for himself. I love, that there is this tension then that comes between them through this flashback of Alfie effectively kidnapping the dissident leader in Morocco with Daveboy, which was Miss Kin's father. And there's a bit more at play here, but similarly, I thought that with the CIA one, and it was kind of like it's almost like a contained story. So I'm wondering if they're just ultimately doing stories by thirds here. The first third with the CIA to get them into this position, and then it will be Miss Kim, but ultimately it's about John Salt, potentially.
Maybe.
I don't know as of yet.
I know what you mean, but I don't really see how it connects into John Salt at all. There's no real connection there. And we can see the kind of duplicitousness of Aziz. You still never know with this character whether he's trustworthy or not. He works for the government. The connection here with Alfie and Daveboy were the ones that were involved in the kidnap of her father, but that was under a different government, presumably 10 years ago, because Aziz was the chief inspector. He wasn't even prime minister at the time. So I would also say Aziz is the government. He's the prime minister. He is. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I do think Aziz is, on balance, friend rather than foe, but he doesn't make life easy for Alfie.
No, he doesn't.
Because he also has to uphold the rule of law as much as possible, even though he will bend it, like we saw in the last episode.
Yeah, I did like that chat between Alfie and Aziz, where Alfie's kind of going, thanks for not arresting me for breaking into the Tower of London. Not that I did that. Some people are saying I did it, but I clearly didn't do it. There's no way. And Aziz said to him, well, I'll use you before you end off in the clink again, basically. So I like that kind of relationship between the two of them. But I do like these stories. I suppose for me, the way I'm seeing it is overall, as a show itself for Pennyworth, these are the adventures of Alfred Pennyworth before he gets stuck in the position of being housekeeper to the Waynes in the future. These are the kind of things that he was going through in the past. So sometimes they feel like these really siloed stories. It's almost given as a reason for having this month time jump between last episode and this episode is because Alfie hasn't had really many jobs. He's saying that time has been going very slowly for him for the last month when he's talking to his mom. He hasn't really had many jobs on. You're kind of wondering, is that the reason for the time jump? Because there was no Alfie and the Boys Adventure in the last month.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I just thought was an interesting way to deal with it. So I wonder if that's really the focus of the season. In the last couple of seasons, the way we've been splitting out our points has been a point about Alfie and the Boys and the job they have for this episode, a point about the Raven League, which no longer exists, or the English League, which no longer exists. That's why we've switched it up this season. Yeah. But it's still almost keeping that format. You're still having the job for the Boys of the Week, plus the English League, which would be now Thomas and Martha is replacing that, and then the Raven League is now being replaced by Beth Sykes' Adventures. So they do have a structure for their episodes, but they do feel quite disconnected at times. But they are pulling them in a little bit. I did like the attack that happened on Miss Kin when Alfie's following in the car behind with Daveboy, and the lollipop man walks across the road to stop her, and then it turns out that one of the school kids that is crossing the road and the lollipop man both have guns and are attacking the car. I thought that was a really fun attack that happened.
I also liked when Aziz is giving the job to Alfred. Initially it's just security, and then it's like, well, foreign diplomats are extra, and then it's kind of a bit more following and spying. That's a bit more extra as well. I really liked all that sort of. It'll be a bit more for that. So I like that. No, absolutely. I loved going to the Queen Anne's Revenge as well, and seeing the betrayal from her, thinking it's a safe house, but there was the betrayal of her head of security, paid for by the official government, and him hogtied, dead and put in front of the president's hotel door. So I really kind of like that. And I think that whole trajectory of this arc was really good. You know, Alfred effectively helping the underdog here in Miss Kin, who is, you know, a pro-democracy leader, which is considered to be a dissident. You know, it had kind of the tune of Myanmar in that sense, in terms of military junta, but with a pro-democracy movement. So I liked seeing Alfred do all that. And then what was really good with this story was just the rug being pulled because of Alfred's involvement with her father, who started up this opposition movement to the president of Kalpa, in the fact that he actually kidnapped him. So I thought that was really good.
Just jumping in here to say that when we originally recorded, we got the name of the city that Miss Kin is from wrong. She's from Kanpur, not Kalpur. Kanpur is a city in India. So it's quite a big point as to where she's from, because it would have been a very strategic city for the British when they were in control of India until India gained its independence in 1947. So there is a point there about where she's from that we missed, because we didn't have our subtitles for the screeners that we had for the episode, so we couldn't pick out the name of the city, but we could have done a quick Google, which we didn't do. But thought I'd drop it in here before we released the podcast. Anything else on Alfie and Miss Kin, John?
The main thing was I really enjoyed the conversation between Alfie and Miss Kin back in her hotel room as they're playing cards and having a drink.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everyone has a price. And Alfie saying, well, mine seemingly is over $1 million because I broke him out of the Tower of London, but then I didn't deliver him to the plane to escape and go overseas. So,
because his honor is not for sale. Yeah.
His price is more than $1 million as it currently stands. So I like that idea of his price racking up over time because his honor and his sense of justice is getting in the way.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. His honor is not for sale, though. That's really important about Alfie. Everything's for sale. He's able to do any job that you want him to do, but not go against his honor, which is probably why this whole thing is causing a big issue with him when he remembers he's the one that kidnapped Miss Kin's father in the past, and that's why she's here in England. So, so that's why he's having a bit of a problem with his honor at this stage.
Yeah.
One tiny thing I just wanted to mention, because I did find it weird. You mentioned about the Commonwealth Summit coming up.
Yeah.
That felt like it was coming up last episode, that the people were arriving for this Commonwealth Summit. Now we've got a month time jump, and we have Aziz talking about the fact that the actual summit will take place in about 4 or 5 weeks' time. So it's a lot more overarching than I thought it was going to be, a much bigger story than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was something that was imminent last episode and happening in the background, and now it seems like it's being pushed out into the future as if it's going to be something very big towards the end of the season. So just keep an eye on the Commonwealth arrival of very big diplomats from other countries in the Commonwealth.
And that's what I mean. I think it's kind of you're just wondering. I didn't place any importance on the summit other than it might have some tangential thing, and then all of a sudden this episode, it is very much front and center around Miss Kin and her struggle.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it's popping in episode 5, and it's, you know, I'm not saying stories and seasons can't sort of take a sharp left or zig or zag, you know, through a particular route of a story arc. But as I say, I was also looking at the CIA as being a big thing here. And I guess it's still there in the form of the lullaby drug.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think that's something to remember. I know nobody's making a big deal about the subtitle for the season, it being changed with the addition of that Batman part to Pennyworth. As I say, that's probably due to searchability. The real tagline for the season is sex, drugs, and mind control. So that is the overarching bit for the season. When you have lots of world leaders possibly coming over to a summit, having a mind control drug in the country is probably not a good thing.
Well, I'm suspecting that is where it's going.
Yeah. Let's go on to that other side of it, the mind control part of it, because there is a new visitor in town. The return of another Wayne family member. Patricia Wayne has returned to visit her brother and stay with him just at a moment when himself and Martha are having some serious problems in their marriage.
Big time.
Yeah, like the episode opens with Thomas having this dream with the music going on in the background. He takes his gun out and goes outside to and has all those memories of the attack that he did on Martha. And then Martha finds him in the sitting room with a gun and is telling him she doesn't trust him anymore. And it's not just because the fact that he attacked her and she knows that he was under mind control for that. It's also because he trusted his father above Martha.
Yeah.
And they have all these lies that they've uncovered about each other, and they don't trust each other. Thomas still blaming Martha for not telling him about the job and how dangerous it was.
Absolutely. And he's walking around the house with a gun, and no one quite knows whether this lullaby potion will be set off again.
Exactly.
And yet he has a gun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, their marriage is absolutely in difficulty here in terms of the trust issues, like you say. But I think it was really good. I loved how Martha shut Thomas down when he brought up the, in a sense, the very small lie about her role within the Aziz government. And really just saying, like, get a grip. You're not holding that over me.
Absolutely.
Given you stabbed me.
Yeah.
Again, she knows it's not him that had control then, but nonetheless, she is nervous around Thomas, and their marriage is in difficulty. And Patricia Wayne arriving here for the Francis Fuchs new exhibition is really tapped in to that there's something wrong here with Martha and Thomas, asks for the lowdown, what is going on. I thought she was really, really good here. Patricia Wayne.
I love
is like,
Wayne. Yeah.
even just when she, finally realizes that as she's catching up with, Thomas and Martha, that Thomas is now a doctor, and she says, "You're actually a doctor, like a real doctor? Can you prescribe some drugs?" Getting into the whole art world, I guess.
Well, exactly. Some really fun conversations. She's a great sounding board, this character, for Thomas. He gets to kind of unload everything that's happened with Patrick, with his father while he was there. I really enjoyed his laydown of exactly what happened. My father drugged me and tried to get me to kill my wife. And Patricia's response to it is, all's well that ends well, because Martha's still alive, so no harm done, right? But you don't get this. My father drugged me and set me to kill my wife. I love Patricia there.
That Patrick Wayne had come over to visit Thomas, and she's just like, well, he obviously loves you more than me, because he's never done that.
Exactly.
Taking time out to visit me. So even though it was for ulterior motives, but like, it was just, it was really good. It felt like she was shining a perspective, the light of perspective onto Thomas, who's kind of become so self-absorbed.
Yeah. Rightly so, though, I'd say.
No, I get that, but what I mean is he's self-absorbed. He's just looking narrowly inwardly, and Patricia comes in with just that different perspective about the same man, about the same family, the same relationship, or sibling relationship, and has this fresh perspective on the couple in Thomas and Martha sat in front of her.
Yeah.
So it's just that freshness, and just the delivery of this was so good.
Absolutely. But it's also forms quite a big bit of Patricia's character. Remember last time we met her, she was kidnapped for 3 days, and here she is coming back to the same place that happened to her for an art exhibition. It just shows the kind of character that she is, that she's just put all that aside, even when she's talking about Patrick's, visit to the UK to visit Thomas. She's kind of going, I didn't really pay much attention. You know me, I lose focus very easily. He said he came over to visit you and my niece. That was about it. No details about it. Completely ignored it. So I really liked that. But it does sort of connect us in to the continuing story of the designer drugs that are going on now in here. To your point when you made it earlier on about these stories not connecting very well together, I did feel it was weird that we had the kind of dropped line that Patricia's here to go to this exhibition, and there wasn't a big moment at the exhibition where she bumped into Daveboy or where it was really, really clear that she was there at the exhibition that same night. I thought that was odd. Why would you mention that she's flown into the country for this and not have her bump into Sally and Daveboy and all three of them do drugs together or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
They're probably keeping it for a later episode, but it just felt weird not to combine those two storylines. Why wouldn't you have the three of them in the same location?
Yeah, no,
you know?
it was interesting. I mean, talking about the new art exhibition by Francis Fuchs, I love Daveboy again here, where he's like, where's the art? As it's just blank picture frames, and then it's a dynamic, real-time piece of artwork as all the assembled guests have paint thrown over them. And all you really hear then from Daveboy is nothing about the splashes of paint that are over these blank canvases, but more that the paint has ruined his quite expensive suit.
Absolutely.
But this then leads to Sally effectively saying, well, look, let's add this drug to the bubbly.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, weirdly, this is the follow-on from the end of last week's episode. So what we found out last week's episode is someone wearing a V for Vendetta mask met up with Dr. Glubb, bought the rights to use this drug, and we find out here that it's Francis Fuchs.
Yes.
At least that's what it seems to be. He's the one still wearing that
He's
V mask.
He's using it anyway. Whether he has a patron higher above doing this work, who knows?
But his plan itself, he doesn't give much information about it, but he does talk about the whole world being a blank canvas, the people that use these drugs, but he's only using it on a very small group of trusted friends. And he's seeing this blank slate that's being created by the drug, which in the past had been used to turn them into murderers. He's thinking of that as almost like a blank canvas and almost like freedom for the people themselves, true freedom.
But it's also, it's the impending chaos that comes from it. So Dr. Glubb is almost saying this isn't how it's supposed to be used, that there is some kind of control or structure, or that a goal is associated with the administration of the lullaby drug. There needs to be a focus to it. Otherwise, it's just chaos. But that is what Francis Fuchs wants.
And we do see a little bit of it with Daveboy when
I
Alfie
really
comes
like
in to
those
visit
visuals,
him.
actually.
That was hilarious. When we have Alfie turning up in top hat and tails with a kaleidoscope sky behind him when he's talking to Daveboy. But we don't get any kind of gooble gobble kind of thing with Alfie. We do hear him saying what he's talking about. You remember that time when we kidnapped that diplomat 10 years ago, and Daveboy's just staring at him going, what the heck's going on? He's completely lost connection with the world here.
He is tripping balls, as they say.
He certainly is. Completely disconnected from Alfie. I'm kind of intrigued by their relationship now going on. They've been together now over a month, himself and Sally.
Yeah.
And I love that moment in the car where he's been given the art book to read, and he's saying, I don't understand a word of it. And Alfie's going, are you enjoying it? And he goes, not at all. He's saying, why are you reading it? Because I think she's going to test me on it at some point. I kind of like that relationship. Again, we haven't seen that much with these other characters in the show, like Daveboy. We didn't see any kind of relationships with any of the characters in the first couple of seasons. We basically just saw Alfie bed anybody that he ran into, like he does again here with Miss Kin this episode, of course. But it's nice to have these kind of romantic relationships going on around as well. Just to quickly mention, we have got Mrs. P going out on another date in this episode.
Yes, we do.
She's connected back up with poor Roger, who was sent running last episode when he saw all the guns being taken out. I love that line from Alfie about him saying, the last time I met him, I didn't think he had much of a constitution since he ran out of the house. It was kind of fun, but a little dance in the park for Mrs. P, a nice little romantic.
Yeah, it was a nice little venue.
It was beautiful place. Yeah, it was a beautiful location. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. But shall we get on to the return of Bet Sykes, who finally reaches the former leader, John Salt, via the former deputy leader, who then became a leader of the Raven Union, Frances Gaunt.
Yes.
I was really pleased that Frances Gaunt was in this, actually. I really liked her character from the first two seasons. And I just kind of like the fact that, in a sense, these two, despite maybe being on opposing sides, certainly by the end of season 2, Frances Gaunt appreciated Bet Sykes. I love the fact that
she saved her life.
Exactly. She saved her life. But I like that she, in this moment, she knows where John Salt is, but won't tell Bet because she should just leave this alone and not be involved with this man anymore because he's crazy. But over the cup of tea that, it ultimately, she will, if she gives up Julia, the baby that's on this journey.
Yeah.
And I like how Bet Sykes really true to herself. Well, this is me.
Yeah.
I will bring Julia. I might be crazy, but I will protect her and I will do my best. But I need to do this.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, Frances Gaunt sees sort of the sincerity of Bet Sykes here, or maybe more importantly, remembers the sincerity of her.
Yeah. Yeah, effectively, Frances Gaunt is saying there's two options here, and she doesn't want either of them. One is that Bet goes and tears through every other member of the Raven Society to get to John Salt, killing everybody in her wake, leaving a bloodbath behind her, and she'll be carrying Julia throughout that whole thing. So Frances Gaunt's going, right, let me take care of the kid. I'll take care of her. You don't have to have anything to do with her. But Bet's saying, well, I love Julia, so not going to leave her behind with you. She's fallen in love with this kid now. And then the other side of this, the other option is if she sends Bet Sykes up against John Salt, Bet Sykes could die. And absolutely love this description from Miss Gaunt where she says, I've realized in a dispassionate Christian way that I guess I kind of love you, which I absolutely love from Frances Gaunt. So she's effectively saying, right, it's either going to be a bloodbath where possibly something bad could happen to this innocent child, or I just send Bet towards John Salt and maybe Bet dies. But that's the best possible outcome here because there's no way I'm getting out of this without Bet going through on some kind of bloodbath, effectively. So I did really like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought it was a really good set of scenes with these two. I'm really pleased that Bet Sykes is back in the episode now
great.
after, well, certainly myself missing her in the last couple of episodes. But we see her catch up with John Salt.
Yes, we do.
She shoots him.
I thought it was just a little bit too easy when he was walking down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
And she catches up with him in that hall.
But he does do the great thing of just sitting back up again, all alive. And as I say, more robot and teeth than human.
Yes, absolutely. And the two henchmen behind her grab Bet Sykes as well. So yes, it is a great moment when they finally meet up there, and Bet finally catches up to her target. But it looks like she can't kill him that easily. So
really good. A nice little tense ending because I really am looking forward to seeing Bet and John Salt together in the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
See what comes of that for sure.
Yeah, it's a big point that needs to be tied up after last season. We have John Salt who got away, the big bad of the season. So now we have Bet Sykes tracking him down. And they're finally face to face, and it doesn't look good for Bet Sykes really here.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens on next week's episode. Any other notes? Any other thoughts about the episode that you want to discuss here?
No, I don't think I have any further notes on the episode.
The only note I have, and we've already kind of mentioned it, is that I'm a little disappointed with the reveal of where that V mask is currently situated, the V for Vendetta mask.
With Francis.
Yeah, I just thought that was a massive cliffhanger last episode, and to see that it's Francis Fuchs, the kind of disconnected artist who's wearing that mask to just conceal his identity, that there's nothing more to it than that. I just was quite surprised that there wasn't a bigger moment because this is a DC Comics character, as we mentioned last season. I think it's a big moment. I think everybody that watched the episode last week, there's been lots of comments online going, wow, they've introduced a massive DC character. And then to find it revealed that it's Francis Fuchs, who just has a plan to give everybody freedom with the drugs, was quite a surprise. So maybe that mask will move on to a more deserving person in a future episode. Maybe that's the way I'm thinking of it.
Possibly.
someone that might use to lead a revolution when the Commonwealth arrive. There you go. that's my thoughts. John, just one other piece of business that we got to talk about this episode. Anything that might have stood out to our American listeners that they may not understand in the episode?
Not that I wrote down, no.
Right. The only one that I have is just when Daveboy is really annoyed at what's happened to his coat, to his very expensive jacket. He he says, I have a Ken to chin that man for destroying my jacket. So Ken to chin is to punch someone in the chin, effectively. I have
chin him.
To chin him. So that's the only one I picked out this episode. Either I'm getting more used to the team on the show this episode, or maybe because of more international connections this episode, there was less things to pick out. But if we have missed any, please make sure you email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Anything that we may have missed in this episode, because there's always some good phrases in there.
Definitely.
Overall, John, how would you rate this episode of Pennyworth, season 3, episode 5, Rhyme and Reason?
I would give this 3 soft scoop 99s out of 5. I enjoyed the stuff around Miss Kin. I really liked how that became quite tense with Alfie having been involved with her father's kidnapping. I really enjoyed Bette Sykes in this. So pleased to see her again in the show, and her finally catching up with John Salt through going and having the cuppa with Francis Gaunt. There was also just... I thought Patricia Wayne was great. I really enjoyed that. And Daveboy, again, really good. So I kind of really enjoy this, but this felt to me like just sort of the next stage. So it was like starting off, and I just maybe didn't kind of, it doesn't feel like it's flowing in that way. So
it feels like each new week's episode, it doesn't feel like they're building to a bigger story. It feels like there's brand new things being introduced. I'd say for this episode, I think you're probably right. It's just having some of the guest stars they have in this episode. Even these are their own guest stars, people like Patricia Wayne returning or Francis Gaunt returning. It feels like they don't really know what to do with them, but they want them back.
Yeah,
and I love seeing them. It's great. Like there's some really funny moments with Patricia. But is there really a necessity to have her back for that scene, other than having some funny moments with her? And you're kind of going, maybe use her a bit more when you've got her back. With Francis Gaunt, a massive character from the first 2 seasons, really important character. Yeah. And it's just a conversation with Bette over a cup of tea. It's a nice conversation. It's nice to see her back as a guest star, but it feels like they're not using them in a big way when
absolutely
like you would.
Or even, rather than having Patricia Wayne there, as you say, really a bit underutilized. Like, have the increasing tension of Thomas Wayne and Martha, another argument or something like that. Something that really then you feel propels Thomas Wayne to Gotham, getting on that plane, because at the moment it just feels like he's running away. In a sense, because you've not had, it doesn't feel as though you've seen enough of him and Thomas having those ups and downs, that stress, that tension happening. And it boiling up to the point where Thomas has to go back to Gotham to see his father. And I think you could have had that in the episode by ultimately not having Patricia Wayne arrive to the exhibition. Again, might be bigger for the next episode, and that's why it's there. But it felt kind of disjointed because it became then the comedic side of Patricia Wayne, which I loved. And it just kind of frustration of Martha and Thomas having to sort of deal with Patricia, rather than them having almost like a blazing row in front of Patricia, some comedy awkwardness from Patricia, but something that ends off with the feeling of why Thomas is about to get on a plane to go and see his father.
Well, exactly.
More than what has happened to him. I mean, it's justified enough, given his handler, plied him with a lethal drug that almost killed his wife. But it feels like with that opening, that's the reason for it. And with the month's gap, it's like you're just seeing one argument immediately. No, it's tense. No, there's issues. but you really want to see that sort of build in the episode to the point where it breaks him. Like, I've had enough of this. We've been at this for a month.
Something like that, yeah.
You know, I need to go and confront my father.
Yeah. Whereas the actual conversation with Patricia was like, sure, it's grand. Your wife's not dead.
Exactly.
and it's fine. He seems to like you more than he likes me. Interesting. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get more in the next episode, particularly in Patricia Wayne, because she does feel underutilized in here. But great to see her back again and again. Great to see Francis Gaunt back. That's it for our thoughts about this episode. Will we go on to our Royal Mail feedback section, John?
Yes.
First up, we have some interesting facts from Jamie Lawton. After last week's episode where we saw the mask from V for Vendetta, Jamie Lawton says, "Did you know that James Purefoy, who played Captain Blighty, was originally cast as V in the movie V for Vendetta? He did about 4 weeks of filming before being replaced by Hugo Weaving, and some of his scenes are still in it, with his lines being overdubbed by Hugo Weaving."
Wow, interesting.
Isn't that really interesting?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, so there is a V for Vendetta connection. So you never know. Maybe Captain Blighty will be V for Vendetta in this show, and he'll get his dream job.
It could be.
Jamie also says, "I looked into the V for Vendetta and Pennyworth connection and got the following from Wikipedia. On October 4th, 2017, it was announced that Channel 4 in the UK was developing a television series based on the V for Vendetta comic book, which ultimately entered development hell. On July 29, 2019, the day following the series premiere of Pennyworth, previously presented ostensibly as solely a direct prequel to Fox series Gotham, series co-showrunner Danny Cannon confirmed that Pennyworth would also serve as a loose prequel to V for Vendetta, with the British Civil War depicted in the series' first season, eventually leading to the formation of the Norse Fire government of V for Vendetta, a sentiment echoed by co-showrunner Bruno Heller on December 11, 2020, on the day of the second season premiere, and again on February 5th, 2021, in the lead up to the mid-season premiere. Characters wearing V's Guy Fawkes masks were later introduced in the series' 2022 third season, set 5 years after the first two seasons, as we saw last episode."
Wow, yeah.
How interesting is that? So there was a potential, at some point at least, that there would be a spin-off from this show, or at least a backdoor pilot, as they call them, for V for Vendetta TV series, which would be set in DC's England as being created by the show Pennyworth. Yeah, that's really cool.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, V for Vendetta takes place, well, at least it was written in the 80s and took place in a changed 80s Britain. Only slightly changed. Well, actually, no, it's quite significantly changed from 80s Britain, but a very depressing.
I mean, yeah, it was a scathing kind of take on Margaret Thatcher's government and the Conservatives, and where it could lead to with what they were looking to do. And of course, what
we've seen
the UK finds itself sort of in at the moment about banning protest and cutting down on rights, not allowing rights and all that. Yeah. So, the expansion of the police, surveillance and so on. Yeah. V for Vendetta takes that to an authoritarian state level. Yeah.
We certainly saw the beginnings of that in Pennyworth season 1 and 2, so I can kind of see how you would extrapolate that out a couple of decades, and then you have something like V for Vendetta feeding into that world that's been created on the Hellerverse, as you aptly called it, John.
Exactly. I mean, interestingly as well, I just remember all the CCTV cameras around, shopping centres, town centres and so on coming in to surveil everyone sort of walking around. And there being significant, rights issues, really treading carefully. And to think now we carry a device that basically tells non-governmental organisations what we're doing, how we're doing it, where we're doing it, why we're doing it, and please send more marketing our way. So I guess ultimately it is the point, once it gets mainstreamed, it feels comfortable, and the dangers don't seem real or close enough for it to be of concern.
Exactly. Yes, Alan Moore was right, as was George Orwell in 1984. They've all predicted this, but they probably didn't realise how quickly we all get into the habit of just accepting and moving on with terms and conditions. Well, there you go. That's a really interesting set of facts there,
absolutely.
Jamie. Some great thoughts there.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Jamie. Also, Patrick Lemke asks, What are the chances that this lullaby state drug created by the CIA is a precursor to the Viper venom? And Pinewood Farms experiments that Wayne Enterprises will inadvertently contribute to 15 or to 20 years from now in the events of Gotham. Is there a chance we could get a young Hugo Strange in a future season if this series gets renewed?
Oh, yes.
Really interesting stuff there, Patrick.
It is, isn't it?
It could well be, given we had Hugo Strange in Gotham.
Yeah, and we had the Viper drug going from the first season, eventually going into the Venom drug, the experiments that were connected, as you mentioned, from what Wayne Enterprises was doing in the background throughout those seasons. So, and that story of occasionally Wayne Enterprises stepping into territory that Bruce wouldn't be very happy with, definitely. So that's a really interesting idea. I love those kind of connections that could potentially be there. And you know that these scripts are all written. They have all those details behind it. So a showrunner like Bruno Heller and John Stevens heavily involved in this show, and Danny Cannon involved in the first couple of seasons of this show. I think he's still involved in the third season, but I haven't seen his credit coming up yet other than the creator of the show. But all of them, those people being so centrally involved in Gotham, I love the idea that they could be just setting the groundwork for where Wayne Enterprises and characters like Hugo Strange do eventually go in Gotham. I wonder, will maybe we may not see a young Hugo Strange in this show because it feels like they're not going to build that direct connection to Gotham, but at least setting the groundwork for where you want to go. Oh, what happens in 10 years' time, right? It's tune into Gotham to see the continuing story or something like that. So I wonder is that the way they do it?
Yeah, good stuff, Patrick.
It would be fascinating if this show did end with the scream in the alleyway with Alfie Pennyworth and
it would,
and young Bruce Wayne. If it continued long enough to end the show that way, in the same way that Gotham went on long enough to finally see Bruce in the bat outfit. So an interesting one. But thanks so much, Patrick, once again for your thoughts. We also got an email in from Victor Von Doom on episode 4. He says, "Greetings, Batverse. Wow, Thomas's dad must really be in deep trouble to let himself get repeatedly pimp slapped again. I guess anything to save his son. I find myself hoping Virginia winds up in the clutches of John Salt or Bet. The jailbreak was very entertaining. Lucius better perfect his inventions before Bruce comes of age. I think Daveboy may have outkicked his coverage with Sally, but I hope it works out for him. That has to be John Salt and the Guy Fawkes V-Mask. Get a move on, Bet. 4 pimp slaps out of 5. Cheerio, Batverse. Victor Von Doom." Oh, sorry to disappoint you in this episode that it's not John Salt and the Guy Fawkes mask.
It's not Victor.
Yeah.
No, and I have to say, yes, wow, indeed, for the repeated pimp slapping of Patrick Wayne by Virginia. I have to say, it was slapstick, no pun intended, comedy genius.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us for the journey, Victor.
Yeah, thanks so much, Victor. Really good to get your thoughts in on the Batverse.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's it for our discussion about the 5th episode of Pennyworth Season 3. We'll be back next week with our chat about Season 3, Episode 6, Hedge Hunter.
Interesting title.
Yes. Episode will be out on HBO Max next Thursday.
Like Ghost Hunter, but for hedges?
Or for hedge funds, maybe?
Maybe hedge funds.
Hedge funder?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a typo. You never know.
It could well be. Yeah, thank you, fellow governors, for joining us. Remember, as always, please share the podcast, because, of course, sharing the podcast is sharing the love.
Absolutely. We've just finished our coverage of 2 big shows of Marvel's She-Hulk Attorney at Law and of The Rings of Power. So all episodes of those podcasts available on TV Podcast Industries. So if you haven't heard those, pop on over and subscribe to TV Podcast Industries on any groovy or straight-laced podcast catcher.
Yes, you can also support us on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries or buymeacoffee.com/TVPI, as well as subscribing to the podcast and sending in your thoughts, theories, comments, and feedback on each and every episode of this season of Pennyworth.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yes, thanks so much, fellow governors and Gothamites, for joining us. Remember, in the meantime, keep watching, keep listening, and stay away from art exhibitions.
And designer drugs.
and designer drugs.
Bye.
Bye.